Hi, and welcome back to Your Health Transformed. I am your host, Dr. Franchelle Hamilton, and I am super excited that we are continuing our bariatric journey series today with Stephanie Mitchell, also known as the Shrinking Chef. I have got to get the backdrop for that name. We'll hear about it on the show, but I'm really excited. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about the true bariatric journey and what your experience was like. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So
So,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So, the background, I'll give you the background of my name quickly.
Okay. Perfect.
Uh, I'm not that clever. I am a chef of 20, professional chef of 25 plus years.
Wow.
And so, which is probably partially what led me to being as overweight as I was to need bariatric surgery in the first place.
Okay.
But I went to my sister and I said, I see all these really creative like Instagram accounts and I want to get one started for my weight loss journey. I need your
Wow.
help because she's clever. And so she was like, well, like, I'm like, I'm getting the sleeve done. And we like tossed all these things around. She's like, what about Steph, the Shrinking Chef? I'm like, done. So that was it. I was sold. So it was
And
not me. I'm not that clever.
that's okay. Well, giving credit where credit is due because I love the name and it flows. So it's I love it, and so
Yeah.
it's perfect, and
Yeah.
it's perfect for you who's been a chef. So that was kind of one of my questions in general. So what made you choose bariatric surgery in the first place, and then a little bit about maybe the journey that may have led up to it. So, and you mentioned some of it, but please share.
Yeah, so I'll take it way back. I've always
Okay.
been overweight since I was a child. You get teased, you get picked on. It's whatever. Kids are mean.
Yeah.
But even through high school, I was overweight, but I was never to the extent that I was when I had surgery.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to be a chef very early on. I went to vocational school while I was in high school. It's all I ever loved to do was cooking, cooking, cooking. And so
Yeah.
I started, that right while I was in high school, like I said, but I went through the years, just, you gain more weight as you get older and it's harder to get rid of. And I've always been active. I've always played sports.
Yeah.
But, they don't balance each other out the way that they should anymore. And so I
Yeah.
just had continued to put weight on and I was really good at losing 50 pounds, losing 40 pounds, and then gaining it all right back. Because when I put my mind to it, whatever the newest fad diet is, I could do it. I did Weight Watchers and that was the most sustainable for me. I did
Yeah.
a juice fast and I was vegan and I ate raw and you name it and I did
Yep.
it.
Yep.
But it just was, you lose 40 pounds, great, feeling great. And then I was a very all or nothing mentality, like, well, I ate pizza today, so I may as well just nosedive and eat
Yeah.
everything, else that's bad for me. And so that's kind of how it was for me. Like I could lose it and then I was really just as equally as good at gaining it back. And so I guess it was, I remember New Year's Eve 2019. I'm
Mhm.
getting dressed, getting ready to go out with my husband. And I was just like, I had this cute dress, but I didn't feel cute. I felt like a stuffed sausage. Like I was like,
Mhm.
ugh, I don't feel cute. But, he always tells me I'm beautiful and,
Yeah.
how nice I look and everything. And he never saw me any differently. But it was shortly like after that New Year's, that's when it first clicked for me, like something's got to change. And I lived in Delaware at the time and I went to, a seminar to learn about weight loss surgery, even though I was the person who thought it was the easy way out. I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe I just need this easy way out because everything else isn't working.
Correct.
And then I quickly discovered there's nothing easy about it. And I
Yeah.
had this,
We'll have to talk about that. Yes.
yes,
Exactly.
yes, I got like, it was like a whirlwind. So I went to the class and I really liked the doctor and he was very informative. And I was like, okay. Okay. And so I was getting ready to leave and they're like, okay, when can we sign you up? I was like, hold up.
Yeah.
Sign me up for what? No, I came just to hear what you had to say. And so he wanted to make an appointment with me. And they asked, like, well, which doctor? We have, these three or four doctors. Which one do you want to meet with? And I was like, well, you did the seminar. I'm going to go with you. Like,
Yeah.
you're the one who convinced me this is something I'm interested in. Still not sold, but interested.
Correct.
So I made my appointment with him and it was a really good surgery center. From there on, I still was on the fence. I had to do nutrition classes. And I
Correct.
said to my husband, he wasn't on board either. And from the beginning, he was like, you
Yeah.
don't need that. You're good. I don't like the idea. I said, well, I'm not booking anything, but let me go through the motions. So I did the
Yeah.
nutrition class because I thought that can't hurt me. Let me take these
Yeah.
nutrition classes. So I did that. And about halfway through the nutrition classes, I was like, I think this is right for me. I think this
Yeah.
is what I need to do. And he was just like, listen, I know you and you're going to do what you want to do anyway. So I'm going to support you. But he was a little nervous about it. It's
Of
a major
course.
surgery. So,
Of
but he
course.
did. We quickly got on board together, and in the process, he lost 40 pounds. I didn't even know he had 40 pounds to lose, but just by
Really?
alongside me, he also lost weight, and we just got fit together.
That's
Um,
awesome. Support, and we can get into that too. Is very key, I think, in this journey, especially when it's someone as close to you as a spouse. Can you imagine doing this? And when if he wasn't on board, it would probably have made it so much more difficult for you.
yes,
So
yeah.
that's great that he was alongside you with this. My question for those nutrition classes as a chef, did you know some of that, or what was going through kind of your head when you were taking some of the, were you like, man, I already knew all this, or I've tried this, or what? Tell me a little bit more about that.
It's funny because I did already know the majority of it. And if it wasn't from, nutrition classes in culinary school, I knew some of it then. But then on top of it, I counted macros before. I did if it fits your macros. So I was good at hitting my macros every single time,
Yep.
losing my 50 pounds and then gaining it back as soon as I stopped counting. But yeah, I knew all of that. I knew what to look for. I've done every diet. So I knew all of this stuff. In my mind, that's when it clicked for me. Like I said, about halfway through, I know how to do this. I need the
Yeah.
help to get me there. I just need something to help me with it, to help keep me accountable. And that's exactly what, we call it a tool. That's exactly what this
Right.
tool does. It helps me. So when I do have that day where, I overeat, and it's hard to overeat
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you can only eat so much anyhow. But when I do have like a junky kind of day and I'm not following my plan or my program, it's not like, okay, I'm going to gain it all back. I'm able to get myself back on track. So that's the difference between just the fad diet, losing 40 pounds and gaining it all back, is that I can quickly get myself back because there's only so much room for error unless I
Yeah.
continue down a toxic path.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like I'm dead set against it because I've had people tell me, like, oh, you're probably going to gain a lot of your weight back. And I'm like, no, actually, I'm not. But
Yeah.
thanks for your advice.
Yeah.
Like, no,
Thanks.
that's not my
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not my plan, but thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe
Correct.
you did, but I'm not.
Yeah. Correct. I mean, why? Like, thanks. Like, why would you even?
Right.
You know.
Save your
But
old clothes. You're going to need them. I'm like, no, they're gone forever. I've
yeah.
saved one pair for like that, comparison when you hold it up.
Correct.
But that's it. I don't want that stuff. It's not
Yeah.
my life anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. And so you had the sleeve because you mentioned that. That was going to be my next question. What did you choose? Did you have a reason why you chose the sleeve, or did that just feel more like a fit for you, or what was your thought process around that?
So I knew two people that had recently, within a couple years of my surgery, that had one had RNY and one had the sleeve.
Uh huh.
And what I knew about the sleeve is that it was less invasive, and that's kind
Okay.
of was the selling point for me. I did
Okay.
have slight issues with GERD, and so my doctor and
Mhm.
I talked about that, and that's an issue with sleeve too. So we were sort of leaning more towards RNY, but he said to me, it's up to you. After
Yeah.
doing my endoscopy, he said, I think you'll be fine. And I think your GERD will go away completely because I think it's food related, but I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think it's going to be harmful for you to do the sleeve. So he left the choice up to me. And when, for me, if I have the choice of just having part of my stomach cut out versus having part of it cut out and my organs rearranged, I'm going to go with the lesser of the two. And I
Yeah.
know that I could potentially have greater success with, gastric bypass because, he showed me the percentage rates and people's success and whatnot, but I'm not everybody else. I know that either
Yeah.
surgery that I had, I'm going to give it my best and I'm going to lose to make myself happy with my progress. So I tried to put that other people's statistics aside and
Perfect.
just look at what I felt like was the least invasive. I don't need to die on this table. Not that that happens a
Yeah.
lot, but that's what's going through my head. Like I want this to be quick,
Correct.
over and done with, and I'm out. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of what led me to doing the sleeve versus anything else.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. And how far out are you right now? How many
Um,
years?
so I'll be 2 years in September.
Okay, perfect. Good. And so my other question is something you mentioned earlier, something that's huge for me is before sleep, you were saying you had like this all or nothing mentality, which is huge, I think, in the weight loss journey in big picture, where it's almost like I'm going to do keto and I'll do keto for like a month, right? Or however, and then you get almost like exhausted, like you're tired of keto, you kind of slip back into a bad habit, and then it's just like, oh, I had a cupcake or pizza, and then it just kind of what helped me, because a lot of my patients go through this. So I want to understand why this happens, and then I want to compare it after you answer that to the sleep. So at what post, bariatric surgery. So before bariatric surgery, when this was happening, why do you think that was happening?
It's like a shame. I think it's a shame
Yes,
feeling like,
yeah,
oh God, I did it, and well, I've screwed up. It
yeah,
is what it is. Again, for the 100th
yeah,
time, I've screwed up. So the shame overcomes you. And what does an obese person do when they're feeling ashamed? Is they eat. So you
yeah,
eat to cover up the shame because you ate. So it's like looking
correct.
back at it now, and I do go to therapy now, and I always thought I would. I'm like, I don't need therapy. Like and even when I went through my psych evaluation for the surgery, the psychiatrist was like, "You're pretty boring." I'm like, I know. I don't have any
Yeah,
like deep rooted, there's nothing serious
correct.
behind me other than I like to eat. I love
Yeah,
food. I'm a chef. This is what I love
yeah,
to do. And so I always thought, like, I don't need that. But I've heard people in the community talk about how much therapy helped them. I was like, you know what? It can't hurt. Let me try it. And so I've
yeah.
actually just got done my therapy before I got on this call with you.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that we talked about, how like the all or nothing, and how the mentality for me has changed, because I struggled yesterday with cravings of sugar. And
Yeah,
I think because of the learning process behind this, and that's why insurance companies want you to have all of this,
pre-op.
work, right, put in ahead
Yeah,
of time, to make sure that you're mentally prepared for it. Because I now know, like, yesterday was a bad day because I started it out bad. I
yeah,
worked outside of the house yesterday. Normally I work from home and I have this routine, and I didn't start with what I would normally start my breakfast with, and I don't think it satiated me the way that I needed to be. So I went
yeah,
through the day struggling, craving sugar and sweets and giving into it. Today's a
yeah,
new day. I'm fine
yeah,
today. I'm not even
yeah.
thinking about it today. And so it's just,
Right,
I'm clearer in mind, and I'm able to recognize I didn't start my day out right yesterday. I didn't
correct.
throw my whole, surgery and almost 2 years of work away. I just didn't start it out the way I should have. And
Yeah,
it's okay.
yeah.
Normal people, whoever they are, eat off track
Right, exactly.
sometimes.
Right. Like,
Right. They eat, because my husband, he's a smaller framed man. He's fit.
yeah,
He's like got a six pack. And I'm like, you don't think like I think, because he's
yeah,
like, just
correct.
eat the Snickers if you want the Snickers. But I
Yeah,
do, but I can't eat like you do. I can't.
correct.
He'll eat a plate and leave half of it because he's full. And I'm like, who
Yeah,
does that? You eat your whole
yeah, yeah.
plate.
Like you gotta finish. Like,
Right.
yeah,
We're not done here. We haven't
yeah,
accomplished this yet. And so, like, working alongside of him and seeing how he eats and how his mind thinks. Because when I would count macros, he's like, why are you putting so much work into that? Like, you took a bite and you're tracking it. I'm like, right, because that bite counts. So
yeah.
it's funny to see how he thinks versus how I think, but he's never had a weight issue ever.
Correct.
So he doesn't
Correct.
see, so that's my normal people when I refer to like people who
No.
aren't consumed with the thought of what you're eating, how
Correct.
you're eating, when you're eating. So yeah, so to backtrack that long story, I did start doing therapy, and it's helpful for me because it helps me to recognize I now
Yep.
know that yesterday I just started my day out wrong.
Yep.
I'm not a bad bariatric patient. I didn't do anything wrong.
Correct.
I didn't satiate my body the way it needed to be yesterday. So I went through the day fighting urges and then eventually giving in to Oreos of all things. They're not
Yeah.
that good. I gave
Yeah.
in to
You're like, come
Oreos.
on. If I was gonna give in, let me give something better than that.
Right. Like I worked in a bakery yesterday, and I was surrounded by all this goodness, and I fought it off all day to come home and eat Oreos. I'm like,
Oreos.
when I look back at it, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous that if I would have just started my day out better, And I've
Yeah.
learned that too, because I go to bed, tend to go to bed a little later and wake up a little later. And so if I don't start my day out correctly at the end of the night, I'm like in the pantry, like, what can I get my
Yeah.
hands on here? So I know I have to start the day out correctly. I never recognized the importance of breakfast as much as I do now. So
Yeah.
I think it's just the overall awareness that you learn
Yep.
through the process that really helps me. That's the difference between the old me who would have just gone off the wagon, like
Yeah.
face planted off and took everybody with me, to now
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like what did we learn from this and how can I fix it going
Yeah.
forward? So it's a
Yeah.
mental process more than anything.
I love that you said that because that's like my mantra. And that's honestly I didn't even have to say it. You said it. Like that's the whole point really of this series. It's learns. What do you learn? Insights.
Mm.
So believe it or not, and you discussed it. Yeah, you discussed it earlier how they want you to go through all this stuff before bariatric surgery. And even the psych eval, I mean, it's not, it's required. It's a checkbox, right? Like a lot of
Mm.
times it's just like, okay, you know what I'm saying? Believe it or not, most of my patients, they all get through the psych eval. It's kind of like a checkbox requirement to get the insurance. And what I noticed, even in my own practice, is none of that work that you do up front helps you with what you're learning right now. And oh my gosh, I love the fact that you're learning it because this is the hardest part, in my opinion. And I'll get your info on that. But and this is I learned from my patients this part, and I'm like, as a surgeon, I need to help like almost like warn you like ahead of time. Like it's not just the surgery, stomach, stapling. Like there's so much work that really the most of the work is after the surgery. Like
Yeah.
you're required to kind of jump through hoops before surgery for like the insurance purposes. But you're right, like you said, and this is why I asked you that, because the nutrition, you're like, I knew that. Most people know that. Most of my patients who come in, they already know that. Most people know you need to exercise. We know how much you need to exercise. We know about a low carb diet. You know what I'm saying? I don't think in big picture I am guilty of it. My colleagues are guilty of it. We need to focus, I think, a little bit more on the mental work that's going to occur after surgery. And it's exactly what you said. So, what you went through, the all or nothing mentality, believe it or not, it's not a you. It's not even your fault. It's a mechanism in your brain that occurred long time ago. And it was a pathway that occurred in your brain and it just became automatic. So, what was happening is, it's almost like your brain was like, I've seen this before and it didn't work before. So it almost like was an activation. It was a trigger. And so therefore your behavior was such that, it's a failure. It's a shit. You know what I'm saying? But this is because, and the reason why it happens to you and not your husband is because your brain is taking count of how many times you've tried things and how many times it didn't work out.
Right.
And in the brain, it forms this pathway. Oh, it failed. It failed. This didn't work out. So then when it happens again, it's just like, forget it. And until you do the mental work to rewire that pathway, most people can never get off of that, which is why I'm so happy that you are seeing therapy right now and that you've just explained it so to where I don't have to, because a lot of people blame themselves, like, why is this happening? And a lot of people weight regain, right? Because
Mhm.
for people who don't put in the work, the therapy work, the mental work after surgery to deal with this, surgery doesn't change this. Surgery does not change that trigger, right? You can say it doesn't change that trigger. Like, and you can just eat less of it, but it's not going to change the trigger that you're feeling like, man, I just ate this cupcake, so I'm just say forget it. That's why a lot of people weight regain. And if we don't put in the work in order to change that pathway, that's what happens. So I'm really excited to hear. And you're getting insights and
Yeah.
you're having compassion for yourself. You no longer feel shame for yourself. You no longer feel guilt to yourself. You're like, it happened. It happened. I'm moving on. You were like, that happened yesterday. I've moved on. I'm not even thinking about it anymore. Versus years ago, you would have kept it would have been like stuck in your head on repeat, like a record player that just kept playing and playing.
Right.
So I am so proud of you. You know what I'm
Thank you.
saying?
Yeah.
And that you're getting the help, you're recognizing it, you've gained awareness, and you're learning. You're learning from this stuff. You just told me why that happened. And so, guess what? Next time, you're like, I'm going to be on my game next time. I know what to do now in the morning, and I know what happens when I don't do that in the morning, you know? And so, I think that's so key in this whole journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a never ending learning process.
It
It
is.
really, really is. And every day I discover something else about myself, what I like, what I dislike. And I've
Correct.
come to a point now too where, and I think this plays a point in it too. And I've said it to friends and whatnot before, because I eat such a little amount now, and I'm almost 2 years out. I eat closer to a normal amount, but it's
Yeah.
going to be good. I'm not
Yeah.
wasting my time on a protein bar that I don't like. It's going in the trash. I'll take a bite and think, no, I don't care how much I spend on it. I'm not eating that because I'm not satisfied with it. And I know
Right.
what it's going to do to me down the road. So I'll try
It's not worth
anything.
it.
Right. I'll
Yeah.
try anything. But if it's not, if it's not something, if I don't love it, I don't want it. I'll just
Yeah.
scratch
Yeah.
this dish and go get something else because it's just not working for me. I'm not going
Yeah.
to, I love food, and I'm not going to sacrifice choking something down when I'm only going to eat like a less than a cup of something. Like, it
Correct.
makes no sense to choke it down and then be like later, like searching through the pantry because I didn't scratch that itch
You're not
earlier.
satisfied.
Right.
Yeah, you're not satisfied. You're mentally not satisfied, and your hunger is not satisfied. And so it's always going to trigger. Anytime you're not satisfied, your brain is going to trigger you. And that's why I tell my patients, then eat it. Like, don't eat if you want a slice of cake, eat a slice, even if just have a sliver then, because you
Right.
have to satisfy whatever that is, or it's going to nag you all day. And
Right.
trying to say no to it when your body wants it, it's going to stress, anxiety, just unneeded stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just going to follow you for the rest of the day. It's not even worth it.
Right.
Just eat the small piece of cake and move on. You know what
And
I'm saying?
the funny thing is, so I travel occasionally for work too, and
Yeah.
that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the way
Yeah.
that I have to plan for that, and so I had done a post on Instagram of the snacks that I take with me, because snacks are
Yeah.
huge for us. Like, you
Yep.
have your meals, and then you have your snacks that are kind of like meals because they're the same size as your meal, but
Yep.
either way. And I had shown a picture of all the stuff that I take with me, and I have a little box, and it's got protein bars, and I have jerky, and I've got, cheese in my fridge, and my yogurt and all that kind of stuff. And then there was this bag of M&Ms, and I'm like, oh, and my peanut M&Ms. And the funny thing is, those M&Ms, I bought them on my way thinking I wanted to eat them in the car because I drove for that particular trip. I
Yeah.
never ate them, but then they sat there, and just the simple fact of having them and knowing if I want them, it's the share pack, and it's 3 servings in it, and I could have some, and it would
Yeah.
kind of satisfy that. I never opened them. The
Yeah.
whole work trip, they came with me I went to visit friends after that, came with me there. And at some point in that time is when, by the time I came home from a 2-week trip, they were eaten, but they
Yeah.
sat there. And any other time that would have been my go-to. I would have gone right past my veggie straws and gone for the M&Ms, but it's kind of
Yeah.
I have them. I can have them if I want them, but I don't feel
Correct.
like I need that right now.
No,
So it's
exactly.
like a little security blanket. There they are. They're there if I want them.
Perfect. Yeah. And I like the fact that you prepare for travel. That's important. Because I always tell my patients, and I do this too, little clips on media, whatever. Don't sabotage yourself, right? And because don't put yourself in a situation where you don't have any options, especially traveling.
Right.
That is an easy. I'm gonna get off my wagon because there's nothing. It's driving. You have fast food. Whatever gas station food, which is gross and not good for you. Obviously, you're going to pass a ton of fast food, and even people weight maintenance, other people, but even people who are just healthy that may have never had been overweight or had to have a surgery, they still pack their food.
Right.
It's still work. Everybody has to do it. It's things that you do on a regular basis so you don't sabotage yourself.
Right.
I pack it. I travel a lot for work too, and I'm always packing snacks because I don't want to get hungry and then be in a situation where I have to stop and get fast food. So I
Right.
think that's you just gave a little tip and a little tidbit, what I'm
Yeah.
saying, probably
We
without even knowing.
So I was in Disney almost 2 weeks ago. I ran my first 10K. I'm very excited for that. So I
Did you
did
do the
that.
Disney one?
I did, yeah.
I want to do the Disney one. I heard it's really good.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
lot of fun. It was very early in the morning. It was 5 a.m., but
oof,
um,
yeah,
I did it. It was dark. But yeah, and I did it and it was great. But in Disney,
yeah,
so we went into Disney parks for 5 days. I packed snacks with me there too because my
yeah,
thought I try to prepare for everything. My thought
yeah,
is I'm with people who are regular people, regular sized stomachs. They're gonna eat their meal and they're gonna be full for until the next meal, maybe have a
yeah,
snack, but I'm eating like kids meals. There was lots of healthy
right.
options for kids meals. One place I stopped at, I got a kids meal of grilled salmon and green beans. And
Oh,
it was
wow.
perfect portion for me. So they have a lot of really
Yeah,
healthy options. So I didn't have to I'm not carrying leftovers around a park with me all
yeah,
day. So I
right,
was able to do that or like split with my sister. Like I would figure out the best way to do it. But in my bag, I had a protein bar. I had some cashews.
right.
I had the little cutie oranges. Like I had stuff in my bag because I know I'm going to be hungry before anyone else here is hungry.
Yeah,
So I want to make
right,
sure that I'm not like stopping and getting, a Mickey ear ice cream or whatever. I mean, I'll
right,
have the ice cream
right.
if I want it, but I'm not
Yeah,
forced to stop and buy
correct.
something else that when I have a bag like full of snacks with me. So it was easy.
Yeah,
I'd pull out a turkey stick out of my bag and they're laughing at me. I'm like, hey man, I'm
they
prepared. I'll wait
laugh.
in this line and eat this turkey
Yeah,
stick. Right.
correct. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. No, I think that's great. And that's what I wanted to get into too. Like, um, you cook. And so what has changed from before bariatric surgery to after as far as like cooking style, cooking method? Do you still, I guess a lot of chefs say they taste their food. Some
Yeah.
people say that's why they may gain weight because they taste. I had one chef tell
That's an
me,
excuse.
if you have a skinny chef, what did he say? If chefs are skinny, you need to be reary. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Because they're
right.
not tasting their food. So you tell me
So
what you
yeah,
know.
you do taste your food, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, how much is a taste? Because I used to use that was an out for me too when I'd have to talk about my weight. Well, I have to taste everything, and it's like, come on, for
Okay,
real though,
okay.
really? Let's be real
Yeah,
here. So yeah, you do taste everything, but also after 25 years, I impress myself, pat myself on the back quite often that I'm really good at making things and hitting my seasoning and hitting everything the first time just because
yeah.
you've done it for so long. I don't have to
Right.
measure, I don't have to do any of that. But even before surgery, so my husband's vegetarian. So that I saw as a
Whoa,
challenge. I'm like,
that's
oh,
interesting.
so like no meat.
Yeah, yeah,
So, but
exactly.
he'll eat shrimp. He'll do some seafood. So
Yeah.
that's like at least I have a
Wow.
win there. But so I started then trying to figure out some of my favorite meals that I could make vegetarian for us. So that was my
Yeah,
thing. And now after surgery, I do the same flip. What are some of my favorites that I can make bariatric friendly? So that's I try to
yeah,
teach people that too in any like cooking like demos or whatever that I do. That I try to teach them how to flip a recipe because I'm not going to not. I just did it for an Easter cooking thing that I did. I'm gonna have mac and cheese, but how can I have
mm.
like the best version of mac and cheese? I didn't even call it healthy mac and cheese because that's just fake news. I was
You're
like,
like,
this is
that's an
right.
oxymoron. Like,
This is healthy-ish mac and cheese is what I
yeah,
called it.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, we're gonna use some Banza pasta and we're gonna cut the cheese back a little. So yeah,
yeah,
I just try to figure out how can I make it still be really good to where anyone sitting at the table will eat it and like it
yeah.
versus me just going and having like all out like holiday food. I made peanut butter eggs that I did with a PB Fit powder and dark chocolate. And I made them. And
Yeah.
my husband, everything I make, he's like, that's gross. Like everything I try to make healthy, he's so picky. I was
Oh,
like, here, taste
really?
one. Yeah. So he ate one. He was like, he's eating it. And I'm watching his face and he's like, it's not bad. He's like, these are actually good. He's like, I can tell they're healthier. He's like, but they're actually really good. And I've
Yeah.
noted he's gone back to the fridge several times and helped himself to the eggs.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, all right. I got a winner here. So some of the stuff
Yeah.
he'll eat, and sometimes he's like, no, I'm not eating that. But he's super picky, so I don't really go by his judgment.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting dynamic to have. Are you vegan now, or are you, or not really?
No, and
Yeah.
we eat. I mean, when we eat meals together, we eat vegetarian because even if we go out to eat, I'll just eat whatever he eats
Yeah.
because I can't finish a plate. Or sometimes if it's something I really want, I'm just going to bring this home and have
Yes.
this, as
Okay.
leftovers. But we eat a lot of the same together. So at home, like this week, he's been working nights, so I'm home for dinner on my own. So I've meal prepped earlier in the week, and I've got like turkey chili in the fridge and stuff for me. So if it's just
Okay.
me, I'll eat whatever I want. If it's me with him, I make it vegetarian.
Okay. Well, that's nice. That's a good
Yeah.
compromise. And
I'm not trying to
so,
make 2 meals just because, he's vegetarian and I eat them. I'll eat whatever I want when I'm on my own, but when we're together, I don't mind the
yeah,
vegetarian meals and I'm cooking it, so I'm going to make it how I like it.
yeah, correct. Perfect. And so, have you seen any outside of making things like a little bit healthier and maybe changing with ingredients? Do you feel like there's a huge change that you had to make in your cooking style or anything like that after bariatric surgery?
I don't think in my cooking style as much as my eating style. So that's whether
Okay,
I cook or
elaborate.
someone else does. That I know when I build my plate, I will always eat in the order of protein first. And this is
Okay.
part of learning your body because that
Yeah.
protein is going to fill me up. And then
Yeah.
I'll eat my vegetables. And then by the time I get to, like, let's just say I made one of our favorite meals is I'm using Impossible meat, and I make Impossible meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and like a vegetable. Let's just say broccoli,
Yeah.
green beans, whatever.
Mhm.
I'll eat the meatloaf, and
Mhm.
then I'll eat my veggies, and by then I can eat like 2 bites of mashed potatoes. So I'm going to eat my
Yeah.
mashed potatoes. I'm not afraid of carbs. I eat my carbs.
Yeah.
Um,
Good.
but I know I can only have like 2 bites of it because that's full. I'm full at that point. So if
Yeah.
I eat my plate in that order, I get the protein I need. I'm still getting my vegetables. Oh, and I can have a couple bites of mashed
Yeah.
potatoes.
So I like what you just said. You said my cooking style, it's not so much the way I cook, it's the way I eat. So that was perfect. I've got to you know what I'm saying? Like highlight that because that's perfect, right? Like the biggest thing, you don't have to have these extremes. That this is why, and you know this now, and you're learning this as you go. These dieting mechanisms didn't work. It only created these pathways in our brain that are not helpful. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so it's because having going through these extremes, juice diets, keto, you know what I'm saying, protein only, all these things, I mean, they're bound not to work long term because your body, you can't live like that. That's always the question I ask my patients when they want to do something extreme. My first question is, can you live like this? Like, can you live like this forever? If the answer is no, I don't want you doing that. And I'm your
Right.
bariatric surgeon. Like, if you say, I'm going to go work out 6 days a week, everybody, I have a large amount of patients that's their goal. And, and I'm like, are you going to be able to live like this and do this forever? And then they think about it and you're like, no. And I'm like, then I don't want you doing it now. Like, don't do what you feel like you don't impose unnecessary stress that causes all kind of other types of problems on your body. And
I
so
agree.
what do you do as far as activity? Do you do any activity or do you focus mostly on food or what do you do?
Yeah, I'm a combination. And so, like I said, I've always been active, even in school,
Yeah.
high school, and whatnot. I played softball, I played field hockey, I played basketball. I was always active.
Okay, so
Um,
let me just pause you there and say because that just dispels the myth that overweight there people are not active. So I just
right.
want to throw it out there because I've heard this time and time again, which is another reason I want to get this out here. A lot of my patients who get bariatric surgery are athletes. We're athletes. It's not purely the activity. Sorry. Okay,
Right.
go ahead.
No, you're right. And the same with my job. Now I work from home, but as a younger chef, it's active. Like you were getting your
Yeah.
butt kicked on a daily basis. I was hustling. But I was
Yeah.
overweight. I was still obese and I'm
Yeah.
hustling daily. And so, that's not it at all. And no one could ever call me lazy. My husband even tells me, he's like, can you just sit down for a minute? Because I'm
Yeah.
always like, I'm a busybody. So you can't
Yeah.
ever, I've never been called lazy, but I've always been overweight. And that's, so the
Yeah.
two aren't necessarily the same.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a very active person. And while my step goal currently is 12,000 steps. And so I work
Wow.
right here at this desk every day for the most part.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm out and about. So I have to go after it and get it if I want it, if I want to
Yeah.
hit those step goals. And that's high for a lot of people to
That's
do
high. No, I don't. Yeah, I don't even. I
right.
work out every day and I don't even get 10,000 steps. So
Right.
that's
So,
high.
and that's my goal. And so my goal is for activity, I either want to hit my step goal, and that could be organically by just like yesterday, I worked in a bakery. So yesterday
Yeah.
I did that, and I went to a local baseball game here. So just in my natural day, and worked at this, at this desk for some of it. Just in my natural day, I hit 12,000 steps. But if I
Yeah.
don't hit it naturally like that, then I have to go after it. So that's either a
Yeah.
jog. I've gotten into running, which I never in a million years thought I'd do. And that happened by walking and getting frustrated that my pace wasn't enough. So I'd jog a
Yeah.
little, and then
Good.
jogging a little led to jogging a lot. And then next thing you know, I'm doing couch to 5K, and I'm running a
Yeah.
5K. I did a duathlon. I just did this 10K. So now I love
Yeah.
it. I can't say I don't necessarily love it when I'm doing it, but I love the feeling of it. So
Yeah.
it's I've mixed emotions with running, but I'll either do that, and if I don't hit my 12,000 steps, then I want to do some kind of workout. So I like to do body pump classes that I do here at home. I have the
Yeah.
on-demand classes, and I during the height of COVID, we bought everything we needed because we canceled gym memberships,
Yeah.
and I bought the
Correct.
weights, and I bought the bench, and I bought the mats, and we started paying for the on-demand. And so I'll either try to do that. I try to get either walk, jog, hike, or a workout in like 4 days a week.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's realistic. That's something that you can do regularly. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? That's something that you can live with. And so I think that's perfect.
And even if I don't want to do like an intense workout, there's
Yeah.
yoga or Pilates or something where I can
Yeah.
just stretch and just be like, have that 20, 30 minutes to myself. It doesn't have to be an hour. It doesn't have to be 2 hours.
Correct.
If I go around where we live, one like lap around the large section of here is 2 miles. So I
Yeah.
know I can get 2 miles in if and I could walk it, or I can jog it, or I
Yeah.
could do a mixture of both. There's a Whole
Correct.
Foods up the street. Going to Whole Foods and back is because sometimes if I need to grab something, I'm like, I'm just going to walk there. It's
Yeah. Perfect.
like 3/4 of a mile, I think, or half a mile or
Yeah.
so back round trip. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I'll be like, hey, you want to walk the Whole Foods? Okay. And we'll just walk the Whole
Yeah.
Foods. And so
That's
it's
awesome.
just taking the other options instead of, I don't always have to get in my car. I don't always have to, there's a gym here, but I don't like the gym here. So it's like,
Yeah.
even if it rained or something where we lived before, we had, it was a large floor plan where we lived. And if it was bad weather, the two of us would jog around the house. We'd put some
Yeah.
music on, blast a little music, and we'd jog, and like the kitchen island, we're going around and we'd high five each other. But let's just get some steps in. Let's keep it moving. So we're not just like
Correct.
couch potatoes. So we just try to
Yeah.
do something. You don't even have to leave the house, just do something.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, thank you. I 100% agree. When I was working out before, like hardcore, I was doing the longer workouts because that's what you thought you were supposed to do. And if you read certain guidelines, they're like, oh, 150 minutes, you know what I'm saying, a week or whatever. Honestly, I brought it down. I do 15, 20, I do whatever I can. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? I work out probably most days, but it doesn't always look the same. And the length changes depending on how much time I have, in
Right.
between kids or whatever. I'm just like, and that's it. And I can tell you there's been no difference for me from when I was doing an hour at the gym to when I do a 15-minute because that's all I have time for. And
Right.
so, it's just finding whatever works best for you and works best in the different stages of life that you may be in. And so, no, I think that's great. The other question I want to ask you, because you are, believe it or not, one of the rare forms where you and your husband are pretty much almost like not alike in the sense that he's a vegan, you're not a vegan, and you're a chef. And then you're like, he didn't really have a weight problem. He's built like this, you know what I'm saying? And I've always had a weight problem. A lot of times after people go through a weight loss journey, sometimes I've seen a lot of people get divorced. And so on the positive note, how did you guys get through it together? It sounds like obviously he is very supportive, which
Oh
is
yeah.
great. And I think that's key. So any tips can you give people who are, but he wasn't necessarily for it initially, but it sounds like he was for you. So
Right.
what tips can you guys give, especially when people are so opposite like that?
Yeah. And they did tell us that in our pre classes and whatnot. And I heard about that before. And so that's something that we talked about too. Like, hey, there's not a good survival rate for marriages
Yeah.
after this. And so we got married in May of 2020, and then my surgery was September of 2020. So a lot happened in that
Oh,
like
wow.
spring to
Wow.
fall. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
all happened together. And he wasn't on board in the beginning, but he knew that it was something that I wanted. And so he
Yeah.
supported it. And he said, anything that you do, I'm going to try to do. Even when I was doing like liquids or something like that, like I would make like a
Yeah.
broccoli soup that we could both eat. So I would try to make things that we could both eat. So he did as much of what I was doing that he could
Yeah.
do within
Yeah.
reason. And so, but not everybody's going to have that. And on the days when he, ate something that I couldn't eat, I didn't look at him like, he's eating that.
Yeah.
Like, this is my journey. This is my choice. It was not his choice. And
Correct.
so I have to sit and be comfortable with knowing that he's not going to eat like I can. First of all, he's a man. Second of all, he
Yeah.
has a whole stomach, and
Yeah.
he just is going to eat more, and he's going to eat what has been working for him. So I had to come to that realization. I can't be one of those people that's upset with him because he ate. Like, that sounds silly. I hear people say that, and I'm
Yeah.
like, like, we don't
Yeah.
get to have that judgment. But he was very supportive. He was not able to come with me for the surgery. He could have gone to the hospital because of COVID. He could have gone to the hospital
Got
and
it.
waited in the waiting room, but we had my stepdaughter as well, and they wouldn't allow her in the waiting room. So he basically was
Oh,
able, we got as far as security before they turned them away. And then I had to go do it alone after that. But I
yeah.
did get very sick. I stayed in the hospital an extra night. And it had nothing to do with the surgery and everything to do with anesthesia. I did not react well to the
Yeah.
anesthesia, and I was
Okay.
very sick from it. And so
Yeah.
I told him, I'm glad you weren't there, because you would have just watched me getting sick. Every time I would wake up, I would get sick, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I would have slept and been sick, and slept and then been sick. And nobody needs to be a part of that. He's like, I still would
Yeah.
have wanted to be there. So, he still wanted to be supportive in that way, but it just wasn't
Yeah.
happening. And so that's okay. And when I came
Yeah.
home, he did take some time off, like a couple days, to be with me at home when I was home. And then, for us, it, life happens, and I think bariatric surgery or not, we would have still had the same arguments or disagreements or whatever, regardless of the surgery. I don't think that was ever an issue for us, and even with us
Okay.
being very different. But it was, I just feel like as long as one of you is always willing to continue fighting for the relationship that you're in, because relationships are not easy, surgery,
Yeah.
not surgery.
Correct.
As long as somebody is still always willing to fight for it, then you're able to stay with your head above water. So even when we're in the most stressful of times, one of us is always able to pull the other one out. And so
Yeah.
you just have to
That's
be a
good.
team. So before surgery, getting on the same page before you even have it. But if I see
Yeah.
people post things like, oh, my husband's not supportive, or he went to McDonald's, or he did that, like, that marriage probably isn't going to survive. You all have to fix
Yeah.
that before you even hit surgery. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like,
I agree.
we're very good at planning together, and just we do a lot together. Today he's like, when I need to go to the store, he needs to go to the store. He's like, I'm going to go after work, why don't we go together? I don't want to
Yeah.
go that late, but you know what, I'm going to wait for you, and when you get done at 10 o'clock, we're going to go to Walmart together. I'd rather be here
Yeah.
in my PJs, but like, let's do that together. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like just making decisions together, and us always trying to plan things together. We plan our meals. We keep a whiteboard with the meals for the week and what we're doing. So I think our planning and us always being on the same page, and nobody's like pulling any surprises, and I'm not mad at him for eating, then we're
Yeah.
fine. Yeah. It's
And it
just
sounds like your communication is really good, which they say is key to all marriages anyway.
right.
But all this planning was communication, and you guys communicated about this beforehand, which I think was key too. Like,
Right.
hey, let's have a conversation about this. These are potential things that I can go through, or what can happen, or what, you know what I'm saying? And almost talking that through. So therefore, it's not like a huge. And then I like the fact that you were like, I'm not mad at him. This is my journey. You know what I'm saying? So if he wants, because I hear that too. How are they going to eat chocolate cake in front of me, or whatever the case
Right.
may be? Your struggle is not his struggle,
Right.
So why? So don't pull him into that, and then let the man eat his chocolate cake. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah. No, and that's exactly it. So I think you just need to have the fundamentals of a marriage or a relationship
Yeah,
down first before you enter something like this. Like, because it's another stressor, just like it's a major life change. So like they say,
yeah.
moving, new jobs, all of that. And we've been through all
Yes,
of, in
yes.
those 2 years, in 2 years, since this surgery, my surgery coming up for 2 years, we've moved several times, changed
Wow.
jobs. Like, we've had a lot of major life
Major
changes
life.
happened, including this surgery. But he
Correct.
was there with me, and we worked out together. We do workouts together. We'll do
Yeah.
as much as we can together, but we have our own space. I took that trip to Disney with my sister and her husband and some friends, and he wasn't able to go. So we I wasn't
Yeah.
not going because he couldn't, but at the same
Correct.
time, he would have been there if he could have been there. So it's
Yeah.
kind of, you just have to be on the same page, and that's no different in any other marriage. But I feel like you
That's
just have to be a little bit extra with it because you're adding this extra factor into it.
yeah. No, I
We still
agree.
have disagreements. We still, not every day is rainbows and sunshine, but you know
Yeah.
what? Somebody pulls the other one out of it. And that's
And it
just,
doesn't have to be necessarily from the surgery. How, what did he think as you were shrinking, so to speak? Like, how, what was his take? Like, was he
so
like,
he's so funny. In full transparency, I've always been very curvy. I have
yeah.
hips, I have a butt, and he loves my butt. And so he'll be walking, we'll be on a hike, and he'll be behind me with his phone. He's like, I gotta take pictures and show people what I'm working with.
So cute
He cracks me
though.
up. I'm like, oh Lord. So yeah, every day that he sees my butt is a brand new day. And so he's like, just that's what he said in the beginning. He's like, just don't lose your butt. I'm like, okay, I'll
Yeah.
try my best, you know.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so
Exactly.
that's just kind of it. Like, it's just been like, he'll just be like, he'll hug me and he'll be like, wow, where did my wife go? And he'll be
Yeah.
like hugging on me. He's like, I love this. So it's,
Yeah.
he was attracted to me at 300 pounds, and he is attracted to me now. And it's just that, we had the foundation first, and it's
Yeah.
not, I don't think it was like, he's like, oh, if you lose this weight, I don't want to be with you. Like, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous. But
Correct.
now I'm healthy. I'm not on medication. I'm not,
Yep.
I'm just metabolically well. I don't have any
Yep.
health issues other than like a bum knee from running a 10K. I don't have
Yeah.
anything major. So,
Correct.
who can argue with that? Like,
Yeah.
we're both well. And
Yeah.
I'm now matching his health, even though like I now weigh what he weighed before he lost weight. I'm like, I'll never catch
Yeah.
up to him.
Yeah.
But
Correct. Yeah.
however, I am now where he was when he started losing weight when we started together. So
Yeah.
we
That's
just we
awesome.
like to have our adventures together. So you just have to, you make the most of it like any other marriage. But I think
Yeah.
there's just, you can't be mad at your spouse because they're doing what they've always done when you're the one who
Right.
decided to change.
Yeah. No, I agree.
To an extent when it comes to food, but like
Yeah.
if you're being mistreated, or
Correct. No.
exceptions to
Yeah,
everything, but
exactly. And we get
yeah,
it. And I think that's a huge takeaway. Like, you can't expect them to go through your journey, so to
right,
speak. You know what
right.
I'm saying? So I think that's the big takeaway. I think that's huge. Kind of looking at the flip side of that. And then my last question for you, what would you think was the most, because you said you even started like, I thought this was going to be easy. You know what I'm saying? And 2 years later, you're like, I'm still learning. Like,
Mm.
and it's literally a lifelong learning process, to be honest. I've had people at year 2 and people at year 10 that are still learning different things about themselves, and it can be a fun thing, almost like an exploration, like, ooh, this is what I like, this is what I can do, this is what would you say though was the most difficult part of this journey for you?
I think hitting after what they call the honeymoon phase. So you hit that kind of 1 year mark, and your
Mhm.
weight loss slows down. And then
Yep.
you're kind of like, what am I doing wrong? Because I'm not at my goal. And
Yeah.
that's something I talk about in therapy. And I also started seeing a registered dietitian because I'm trying to navigate myself through that. Yes, I'm okay with where I am right now, but I haven't hit
Yeah.
my goal. And I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I really kind of want to hit that goal. And the joke
Yeah.
has been, with my excess skin, if I had the skin removed, I bet I'd be at my goal weight. So that's kind of like,
Yeah.
meh, is that goal enough for
Yeah.
me? I'm not sure. Like, maybe it is,
Yeah.
maybe it isn't.
Yeah. Correct.
But like, I just feel like once I hit that, and you stop like the excitement of losing, even if it's a pound a week, the excitement of losing weight is gone. And now you're just left to be and kind of figure out life and maintenance. I feel like
Yeah.
that was the hardest,
Yeah.
because your tool is going to allow you to constantly lose weight as you're going through it. But when you start to slow down and it becomes life and maintenance, now you're like, I've never had to do this before. I've never had to maintain. I've always either been just
Correct.
eating my face off or losing. There's never
Yeah.
been that maintain. And so that's when I started seeing a therapist and a dietitian,
Yep.
because I want to make sure, I don't want to be a statistic. They say
Yep.
like once you hit your chances of regain after 7 years goes down significantly. So I'm only
Yeah.
2 in. I got another 5 to be one of
Yeah.
those really good percentages. But I don't want to be a statistic. I don't want to, so it's my cousin's Bobby's, sister's brother had that surgery and they gained it all back. It's not
Yeah.
me.
Correct.
Stop doing that. That's not me. I don't want that to be me. And I just know that's also why I'm very active in the social media community, because I know people are watching and I don't want to
Yeah.
be a statistic. I don't want to, I love the life that I live. I was active before, I'm way more active now. And
Yeah.
so, but learning to live in maintenance, what nobody prepared me for that. That's
Correct.
where
I know. I
that's where the
know.
drop off is. Sure, I know I
Yeah.
need to hit this much protein. I
Correct.
have to hit this much
Exactly.
water, but now what?
Yep.
Now what? Here I
Yeah,
am in
because you
maintenance.
learn all
Like,
that. That's what you learn in the bariatric classes. You
mhm,
learn, to drink your weight in kilogram water and get, 64 grams of protein, like all this stuff, like all these check boxes. And it's what you don't learn, which is why I wanted to do this, because this is the most important part. This is where, rubber meets the road, so to speak.
right,
It's a completely new life. For most people, it's an evolution of themselves. They've become a better version of themselves through this process, and they're continuing though. So it's almost like you're not the same person from 3 years ago. You know
mm,
what I'm saying? And it's just a constant learning process. And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
Life and maintenance. That is, if someone would have told me that 2 years ago, I would never believe it. I'd be like, oh, well, I've lost my weight. It's great. It's not. It's
yeah,
not. It's hard. It is
yeah,
hard to know just like that you're doing. It's almost like parenting. You just do the best you can and hope it all turns out okay.
yeah,
So
correct.
that's it.
Exactly.
I'm gonna keep fighting the good fight and just,
Yeah.
I don't want to be a statistic though. I don't want someone to talk about me the way that you hear, Susie's brother's cousin
Yeah,
story.
correct. Exactly, because that's what people hear. Like people who you often talk to people. Oh, I know somebody who had that. That's exactly and they regained all their weight.
Right.
So you just kind of blow it off to something, and people blow it off to something must have been wrong with them.
Right.
Not realizing this is the hardest part. You're living in a new body. Like there's so much going on. You know what I'm saying? Post-op bariatric surgery, it is not as easy as people think.
Right.
You're right, losing the weight, it just comes off. Believe it or not, and I hate to even say this, people can eat not as good and still lose weight
Right.
right
There's
after surgery,
way more room
right?
for error in the beginning.
Yeah,
Yes.
correct. This is the hard part. You know what I'm saying? Right here. And
Hmm.
so, but it's hard because you've got to change pathways that were created a long time ago. There's just a lot of almost like emotional work, mental work to do at this point. You got to kind of take away some of those bad thoughts processes, you know what I'm saying? This is
Yeah.
that's why it's hard. It's
Hmm.
you can like easily eat well. It's all this other stuff. It's all like the mental work that kind of comes into play, very similar to what happened yesterday. You know what I'm saying? Or any day.
Right.
So I
Yeah, and I
agree.
feel like a part of that package, part of the pre-work, it should be I shouldn't have to go to insurance for approval to have a therapist after surgery or
I
to see a
100% agree.
dietitian. I think it should just be a part of it. Oh, you're doing this, now I need you to do this. Because I did
I
you a
agree.
favor. I'm not high blood pressure anymore. I'm not pre-diabetic
Correct.
anymore. I don't have fatty liver disease anymore. So I did you a favor, now do me a favor
Correct.
and
I
help me stay
agree.
that way.
I was like, this is a whole like insurance coverage for this. This is another reason why I'm doing it. It's just to expose like getting surgery. I had one patient who that we talked to, the sleeve was covered, but the gastric bypass wasn't covered by her insurance. And you're just like, and I've seen that a lot too. One will be, and then they cover the eval at the beginning because it's required. But then afterwards, it's like trying to jump through hoops. And you're like, are you kidding me? This is the most important part. I
Right.
saved you the insulin that you were paying for. I saved you the blood pressure medication that you were paying for. And you can't, oh my gosh, that's a whole nother topic.
Right. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure talking. Thank you
Absolutely.
for telling us about your journey and being so honest.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like if one person benefits out of this, it helps me because I've
Yeah.
followed many on my journey. So it's you got to navigate your own path. So if I help one person, it was worth it.
Yeah. Perfect.